this is the first time in almost 400 years that a senior member of the British royal family has been arrested. And this monumental moment is now raising questions for President Trump about accountability right here in the U.S. When asked about Andrew's arrest and whether anything similar would happen here, here's how President Trump responded.
Well, I'm the expert in a way because I've been totally exonerated. That's very nice. So I can actually speak about it very nicely. I think it's a shame. I think it's very sad. I think it's so bad for the royal family. It's a very, very sad. To me, it's a very sad thing. It's really interesting because nobody used to speak about Epstein when he was alive, but now they speak. But I'm the one that can talk about it because I've been totally exonerated.
I mean, the question right now for a lot of people is, why does there seem to be a much greater appetite overseas for accountability than there is here? And then a secondary question, as you heard the president there, it's always about him, always, as opposed to about the broader concern that people have for justice for the victims here.
Yeah, I was struck by the tone in his voice there, how sad it was. It feels like that's genuine empathy for the people being brought down for this shocking level of corruption. It's more empathy than you hear, for example, when he talks about the death of Jesse Jackson or when he talks about disasters in states governed by Democrats. There was something genuine in there, which was gross. But this is a darkness that just continues to expand, right? Not just the horrible abuse and torture and God knows what else that happened to girls and women, but some of the world's richest and most powerful men trading secrets, getting rich with each other, and the impunity that they thought they had. I mean, I think that's what is terrifically shocking. And I do think there's a demand for accountability in this country, and politicians are going to have to reckon with it.
And remember, the Trump's Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, let me play what he said not long ago about whether there would be anything coming from the DOJ more on the Epstein issue.
In July, the Department of Justice said that we had reviewed the files, the quote Epstein files, and there was nothing in there that allowed us to prosecute anybody. Now, there's a lot of correspondence, there's a lot of emails, there's a lot of photographs, there's a lot of horrible photographs that appear to be taken by Mr. Epstein or people around him, but that doesn't allow us necessarily to prosecute somebody.
Again, I'll ask, how can he be so sure? And how much longer, I think, is that going to fly when it seems to there's a great desire, not just on the part of the victims, but on the part of Americans to see more in terms of, at the very least, investigation and accountability here?
Yeah, I think you are going to see some investigations on this. I mean, the more that's come out. I mean, remember, President Trump's the one that released all this. This wasn't released before him. Biden never released all these, and he had them. So I think it's a testament to him that he did release them. And as you said, this is the first time since 1647, Charles I getting arrested. It's a terrible thing for the royal family. King Charles is going to be here in April. This is not going to go away. He's going to be asked about this here. I'm sure he's unhappy about having to go through that, but he's going to have to go through it. The press is going to be on him on it. And I think ultimately, by the way, you said, this is for men. There's a woman in jail right now. So this was men and women that were doing this. It's a terrible thing that's going on. And it is amazing that someone like Jeffrey Epstein had this kind of power, that he could, even after being arrested and put in jail, he's meeting with Prince Andrew at the time. I mean, that is remarkable that was going on. And others in this country,
Yeah, there's a long list. I mean, to your point, there's a long list of people so far that have stepped aside, but here's another list. These are big names that are mentioned in the Epstein files who haven't done anything. I mean, there's, of course, Trump. That's a separate issue. Howard Lutnick, RFK Jr., Steve Bannon. I mean, gosh, even MAGA is asking why there are no consequences for him. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Les Wexner, who was just deposed this week
by
left out President
Congress.
Clinton.
You left out President Clinton.
Yeah.
President
Clinton. You left out the one Democrat there.
President Clinton is coming to speak before Congress.
Yes.
At the very
As
least.
he
None
should.
of these other people are.
I think the people who are not in the Epstein files and are not on the list, put those folks aside. I think this is an issue that spans across parties, that what happened in that cabal of powerful, extremely wealthy, the folks who did it, disgusting people, folks want them to be held to account. And you did say there is a woman in jail, but it's so funny that there's only one person and that it is a woman in jail when the accounts of the survivors are that it is men and not just one woman or one man, Jeffrey Epstein, but many many hundreds of victims, and there are not hundreds of people in jail. And so I've said it before, I'll say it again, that math does not math.
I agree.
And because the reason why this now spins into politics is because the Trump administration, officials in the Trump administration, and so many in MAGA made this conspiracy theory come to the forefront and make it be a promise. Now, the files are released, but that isn't justice. Releasing is not persecution for folks who have done wrong. That is the thing that now this administration is going to have to really circle it around and see if they can close this gap. And if this is the administration that does it, good for them. But to date, because you have Todd Blanche saying that nothing else is going to come of it, there's a lot of questions.
Well, and there's too many names that are blacked out in these emails for no reason.
And I don't like it.
There's an email with a name black. You're like, why is this name blacked out?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
And there's a lot of defensiveness coming from DOJ about why those names are redacted. And they seem to be, again, more concerned about protecting the names of people who they claim are innocent. When, I don't know, I think people want to see any evidence that maybe anybody is being looked at, being questioned. Let me just actually play this. This is Les Wexner. He was, just for context here, Wexner is a very wealthy billionaire. He is the source of a huge sum of Jeffrey Epstein's wealth and has been connected to Epstein for a long time. He's denied allegations that he was involved in the wrongdoing, but here's what he said when he was asked if he was ever contacted.
Has the FBI or DOJ ever directly contacted you or spoken to you about Epstein?
Not to my knowledge.
Never.
Never.
Did you speak to any law enforcement agency of any kind regarding Jeffrey Epstein's investigation in New York in 2019?
Never. Didn't. No, I don't remember ever talking to any law enforcement agency.
How is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think to everyone's point at this table, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, they were not trafficking young women and children to phantom people, right? And I think that MAGA's base brought this to the forefront of the conversation. They were the ones who got Trump to really listen, because this has been, to your point, it was, kind of maligned as a conspiracy theory 10, 15 years ago. People were QAnon if you said that there was a cabal of elites who were doing this to children. And President Trump had his ear to the ground. He listened to them. And I think that there are supporters out there who are saying, okay, we have these redacted files, but where is the accountability coming from that? That being said, I think two things can be true at once. President Trump has begun to release them. We still haven't seen the type of accountability that most people want to see when it comes to children being sex trafficked. Two, polling indicates that this is surprisingly, as much as we talk about it, not as big of a campaign issue as something like immigration, economy, crime. And I think that you see President Trump trying to focus on those things, which is why maybe he comes across as flippant sometimes with Epstein, just because he's saying, okay, here's what the base cares about, here's what the voters are saying. So I don't necessarily know if it's him just saying, screw the Epstein files. I think he's just saying, this is the priorities right now, I'm speaking to them.
I've just never heard him say anything about the victims. It's as simple as that.
My dear sister, I'm still in very deep grief and mourning for my dear brother, Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson Sr. And he's a product of the black prophetic tradition. Goes all the way back to Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass. Martin King died saying what? America is more and more becoming a spiritually sick and morally decadent society because integrity, honesty, and decency is being pushed to the margins. It's all about money, 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 power, 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 with no mechanisms of accountability of the strong to protect the weak or those /stone called everyday people. Now, part of the genius of Jesse Jackson, given his humanness and faults and foibles, was he tried to keep alive a lifting of voices, which is the anthem of the Black Freedom Movement. Voices that are self-critical, because we know all of us are flawed. All of us are cracked vessels just trying to love our crooked neighbors with our crooked hearts. So it's not a question of just skin pigmentation, or gender, or sexual orientation. But there is a spiritual sickness so deep that this is just the peak of the iceberg.
That's right.
It really is. When you rip the veil off of what has been happening, especially in high places. Now, I don't think that the rich are born wicked. They can choose to be decent, but they can become parts of culture that reinforce, or subcultures that reinforce their sense of impunity and lack of accountability. So the question really becomes not so much being preoccupied with the sickness. The question is, how do we talk about regeneration? How do we talk about revitalization? How do we talk about a renaissance of integrity, honesty, decency, service to others? And Brother Jackson, He gave us all.
Yeah,
He really did.
It's
He gave us all.
to your point, it's so integrated into our society. I went to Ohio State. I lived in Columbus for almost a decade. Wexner's name is all through the city. Buildings, hospital centers, the brands that many of us the millennials use to be part of our identity, the Limited, Express, Bath and Body Works, so all of that, Victoria's Secret, all of those things that felt so part, the wealth that was generated through, and if he has connection, so it really is, you say pull the veil back, it could be the beginning of an empire beginning to fall if we cannot find the moral clarity in this moment.
And I think to your point, Dr. West, where it starts with there needs to be accountability.